Hi, class. As I indicated, we're going to do Chapter 4 through this video lecture. It will be available to you in the WebEx tab under Event Recordings within iLearn. So to get started, I'm just going to share my PowerPoint and we'll start talking about Chapter 4. So we're going to be looking at ethical and social issues within information systems for this chapter. We hope to learn what ethical, social, and political issues are raised with information systems. We'll look at principles of conduct to guide ethical decisions. We'll look at why contemporary information systems technology and the internet pose challenges to protect privacy and property. And we're going to look at how privacy is not the same thing as being anonymous. And we'll see how information systems affect laws for accountability, liability, and the quality of life for everybody. Your homework is what net neutrality means for you. In class, we'll look at Facebook and Google privacy. I've never shown the U.S. versus terrorism video before, but I may do that one instead of Facebook and Google privacy. The Facebook one is kind of dated, so we'll see when we're in class tomorrow. So the chapter starts off with the dark side of big data. Big data is a new type of database that allows the storing of non-traditional types of data. Voice, video, pictures, memes, things like that. All started with the real creation and evolution of social media. So what ethical, social, and political issues are raised by information systems? We see every day that companies fail in their judgment. Some things that the author points out, General Motors, Barclays, etc. A whole branch of my business called really IT forensics, discovery, and audit started because of the failures of Enron back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Their unethical accounting practices through information systems led to us having the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which really took over the last 4 or 5 years of my job at Syncora. So what are ethics? They're what's in us that helps us make right and wrong decisions. So what does information systems do to raise awareness to ethical actions on the internet and such? Through the internet, the cloud, we have new kinds of crime. We have new kinds of threats. Power is being distributed, money, obligations. Through this, we see malware, spyware, ransomware, all kinds of things that we'd never seen prior to the explosion of the internet and low-cost access to the internet. So, back in St. John's, we all were forced to take 9 credits of theology and 9 credits of philosophy. Theology is the study of our religion. Philosophy is the study of how people think. So I particularly like this chapter as it brings me back to my youth when I was sitting where you're sitting. Those classes really helped make me who I am today and really helped me with my majoring, that it really took me away from the day-to-day grind of programming and learning about things we're learning today in class. So we think of the world as a calm pond. Have you ever been outside a lake or a pond and it's perfectly still, the sun's glistening off it, it's very pretty. What happens when you drop something in the pond? You get little ripples, little waves. Well, the same thing happens in an organization. Everything's working well, everyone's happy, we're doing our job. IT comes in and says, we're putting a new system in. We're putting a new way of thinking in. And it hits the fan. Just yesterday at Greystone, I put in a new system for encrypting our email and protecting our inbound email coming in. So we're going to have less chances for viruses and phishing and things like that. And it caused a whole bunch of help desk questions because our users now weren't getting their spam mail because we were blocking it. But we give the people the ability to open up their mail if they want to. We send them a digest, a little snapshot of here's what was blocked. You want it, click. You want it, you don't want it, click delete. Well, our folks really couldn't grasp that, and we had a whole bunch of tickets. So we messed with their compound by adding something new. Pretty much what this little slide shows, we have the Earth as being round. We have IT and IS in the middle. We have political, social, and ethical issues that guide how our organization runs, as we've already talked about. Now, on the IT side, we have to look at accountability and control. Who's responsible for the new system? Who's responsible for its quality? Who's responsible for the training? What rights and obligations do our end users have? What rights and obligations do we in IT have? So 5 moral dimensions for the information age. Information rights and obligations, property rights and obligations, accountability, system quality, and quality of life. We may have part of a question or exam on system quality and quality of life. It really goes into who's responsible for making good software, making sure it works, making sure we have good data. So technology trends that raise ethical issues. So we're going to learn computer power doubles every 18 months. So that means when we buy our laptops or desktops today, 18 months from now, that machine, the power of it will have doubled, thus making it indisposable. Making it disposable. But do we change our computers every 18 months? No, because as long as they're doing the job for us, we're fine. The way we store data is dropping drastically. Now we're storing data on the cloud with free services like OneDrive or Dropbox or Google Drive, and we get storage for free, and we take use of that, and then we buy extra data storage if we need it at very low costs. We have better ways to do data analysis and predictive analysis, looking at trends. Our networks have gotten faster and faster at such a lower cost. We all know the growth of mobile devices, tablets, smartphones, etc. Data analysis. I'm sure you all have heard of profiling. It's where we combine data from multiple sources to create folders on individuals. We see it in racial profiling, ethnic profiling. We hear stories about it almost every day. So NORA is combining data from multiple sources to find hidden connections that may help us. Last summer on CBS, there was a show where couples would pretend they were criminals, and these law enforcement people would have to find them. And the whole story was built around NORA, how these professionals were able to find these amateur criminals. Very interesting show to watch. I'm sorry it didn't come back for a second year. It's kind of what we're seeing here. Watch lists, arrest systems, point of sale systems, telephone records, human resources systems, all go into a database. And now we can track you on who you may know, what you've bought, who you've called, who your dependents are, who your family is. So responsibility. Accepting the cost, duties, and obligations for our decisions. Typically goes at the top level of our hierarchy. Accountability is mechanisms for identifying responsible parties. Liability permits individuals to recover damages done to them. Due process are laws that are known and understood that should go to all people. So to do ethical analysis, we do this oftentimes at the beginning of our system analysis to see if we need a new system. We want to get the facts, define conflict and dilemma, who's the stakeholders, what options can we take, and what are the consequences for those options. Going back to my past, I think we all know the golden rule: do unto others as you want them to do to you. And you treat people well, you'll get treated well and kind. It's too bad I can't show Kant's categorical imperative in class. If an action is not right for everyone to take, it's not right for anyone. I've thrown chalk before. I've taken my phone and just dropped it. I've moved chairs around, and I've asked the class, is this okay for you to do? And to a T, they say no. So that means if it's not right for them to do, I really shouldn't be doing it. Descartes' rule of change. If an action can't be taken repeatedly, it's not right to take it all. It means if I can't do the same action over and over again, I shouldn't do it the first time. Utilitarian principle. Take the action that achieves the higher or greater value. That's what we typically do as humans. We want the most reward for the least cost. Risk aversion principle. Take the action that produces the least harm or potential cost. So those two principles really go hand in hand. We want the least cost doing little harm, but we want the highest value. And lastly, my favorite, the no free lunch rule. And it's pretty much what it is. If something's free, it's not really free because there's a cost somewhere. I ain't no free lunch. Someone's paying for your lunch even though you're not getting those charges yourself. Professional codes of conduct. There's some agencies that teach us how to be professionals. AMA, the ABA. I'm a member of the ACM, Association for Computing Machinery. They're guidance to keep us on the straight and narrow. Some real-world dilemmas we look at here. Examples: monitoring employees. Is it right of a company to maximize productivity of its workers versus the right of the use of the internet for short personal tasks? We at Greystone, I at Greystone, created an acceptable use policy similar to what we have at Marist. It tells my employees what they can and can't use their corporate-owned device for. Now, no one's going to fire you for getting on Facebook or doing a quick YouTube video, but just realize that your employers can watch and see where your traffic's going. Same thing with email. The system I referenced earlier shows me every piece of email leaving and coming into my environment. So I know if I'm sending an email to my wife from my corporate email. Well, I would know that anyway because I sent it, but people can now see, is the point. Is that right or wrong, though? In my mind, it's fine because we give up the right to privacy when we're at work. We're doing a job, getting paid for that job. New York is an at-will work state where you can leave whenever you want, or we can get rid of you whenever we want. So, do what's right. Privacy is the claim of individuals to be left alone, free from surveillance or interference from others. There used to be an exam question when I did 4 exams about being anonymous and having privacy. So privacy is great, and we should stake our claim to privacy. However, the internet doesn't guarantee us to be anonymous. We can act like we're not there, but it's not okay to pretend to be someone else just so you're not seen. In the U.S., we're protected by the First and Fourth Amendment, the Privacy Act, the Patriot Act, etc. Fair information practices. So how we can use and collect data. We see this opt-in, opt-out model, and every time maybe you buy something and they ask, can we hold your email address and mark it to you? That's opt-in, opt-out. It's how we're ultimately going to use that system. We probably get the EUIs all the time of here's how you use our system. I just upgraded my iPhones to iOS 12 today, and they send you the end user license agreement, which tells you how Apple's going to collect and use your data. Do you think I read it? No, it's 3-4 pages long. Take way too much of my time. But that's what typically we all do. We don't read these things. So, but as an organization, we're protecting ourselves by having them there. COPA, Gramm-Leach, HIPAA, do not track online, or methods that we protect your privacy. At Greystone, we deal a lot with HIPAA protection of our PHI. FTC and FIP are there as well. Europe is much stricter on the use of data. Until recently, if you were an organization doing a business in an EU country, you had to hold data in that country, which made it difficult, especially for U.S. firms to do business in Europe. We're having copies of our data all over. EU members have a little less stringent rule, but you can't transfer data to other countries without similar protections. EU members all have the same protections, which is great. It makes it easy for them to transfer data. But if they were sending data to, say, Canada, they had to make sure similar protections are in place. How does the internet play with privacy? Well, first thing is our cookies, and I don't mean chocolate chip or peanut butter. Cookies are a little small file that tracks your visits to a site. And cookies help us in that we don't have to remember the sites we've been to because they'd be readily available to us through our URL browser, and we can type in, ilearn.marist.edu, and we've been there, it saves the site, and off we go. But people like Marist use cookies to track where you're going, to see how long you've been on their site, see what pages you've viewed on their site. More importantly, where do you go next? That where do you go next, we track, because then we're going to advertise you to hopefully come back. Spyware we've seen already in our home course. It's files that are installed without us knowing it. We can have unwanted ads. We can have ransomware. We can have people doing things, opening windows when we don't really want them to. We talked about opt-in, opt-out model already. So here's a little bigger discussion on cookies. So we have our user who uses Windows 10. I'm going to change this to Microsoft Edge because Internet Explorer 11 is very difficult to get to if you're using Windows 10. And we have an email, jdoe123@aol.com. So we're going to send a request to say, I'm just looking around my room here to see where we can go. All right, we're going to go to redstormsports.com. That's the sports website for St. John's University. And here's your question that you're going to give back to me within the assignment tab. There'll be an assignment tab for this lecture called Lecture 4. You'll say to me, Al got the website for the cookies discussion because he was looking at a picture of his family outside of Madison Square Garden with the St. John's basketball banner in the background. So we went to MSG for, I think it was Big East tournament, and the big banner was out there, and I took a picture. So that was our question for today. So frame it to me any way you want, MSG and St. John's. So we went to redstormsports.com, and it goes through our routers, our switches, which we'll learn about in the next 4 weeks, and it finally gets to the server where redstormsports.com is. It says this user is not logged in, but they need our homepage. So it goes to a database, it pulls out the random web page, sends it back to the web server, sends it back to us. All the while, the server sends a little file back that says, you're JDoe123 using Windows 10. Okay. Maybe it's recognized that we've been there before after we've put in credentials. And it says, welcome back, Jane Doe. So it really tracks who we are every step of the way we are on the internet. So if you're using social media and you've also been shopping, say, for the latest Nike shoe, and we don't buy it at that store, you go onto Facebook or Instagram, you see an ad for that same shoe, and you wonder, how do they know I'm here? It's because of cookies. So we'll see an ethical dilemma. Are forcing cookies something that a company should do? I think they're harmless, and it's a good way to market to us. But if we want true privacy, we need to browse in some kind of private browser setting so cookies aren't passed. But oftentimes we can't get the websites. So it's a give and take. Email encryption, or tools I just put in place at Greystone again, were required by the government to encrypt our email, which means we put security around our email that it can't be just read by an attacker. The language is all jumbled. So if I send an email from Greystone email to any of you, I would type in the subject in brackets, encrypt, then the subject, and put in the body of the email and send it. On your end, you would see, I sent you an encrypted mail. Click this link. You would enter your email address and password. If you didn't have an account, you'd have to create one. After it's created, you log in, and then you can see the email. A lot of times, banking institutions will send encrypted mail to discuss things through email. There's anti-spyware, anti-malware tools that help protect us. So all these solutions fail to protect users from being tracked from one site to another. But if you want protection, just do not track, opt out, private browsing. Don't browse at all. Next up, property rights. Who owns our property? Intellectual property. Intangible property of any kind created by individuals or corporations. Here's how we protect it, intellectual property. Trade secrets. We talked about Coca-Cola in class on Monday. I typically give this example too. The second highly regarded trade secret we have in the U.S. is the recipe for original recipe Kentucky Fried Chicken. Copyrights grant protection of intellectual property for the author for 70 years. Copyrights for things like books or music. Patents, they're for inventions. They give protections for 20 years. We had struggles for years over managing intellectual property, going back to the 90s with Napster, how they were giving proprietary music files away for free. Apple fought back and launched iTunes, like we said in class, saved their organization. And yeah, iTunes wasn't the guy on the white horse. They were looking for a way to make $1, but what it did was protect people's rights to what's theirs. I don't believe in BitTorrents, getting movies that should be paid for free. Illegal CDs, DVDs. I've never been a proponent of those. I have a very good friend who uses a Amazon Fire Stick along with some other services to get programming for around the world at little or no cost. I don't agree with that as well. I believe if you produce a product, you should get paid for that product. Challenges we have, we can replicate it, we can alter it, we can copy it, we can disperse it after we copy it. Very difficult to keep what's yours. This is where my exam question really came from. If software fails, who's responsible? If it's part of a machine that injures or harms, the software producer and the operator is liable. If seen as a book, difficult to hold, the author is responsible. If it's a service like a phone system, not transmitting messages, it's the phone system. Ultimately, if software fails, it goes to the software provider. Did we train adequately? Are servers good enough? Did our programmers get what you need out of them? the right way. Technologically feasible level of system quality means, can we produce flawless software? I use the Apple versus Microsoft example all the time. Apple releases operating systems once a year. Look at their cell phone platform, iOS 12 was just released. They have updates a few times a year on their desktop and laptop operating systems. They really only update once a year because they spend more time research and development on their systems to make sure they work as flawlessly as they can. Microsoft releases their products yearly, every 6 months to meet customer demand, and it's never flawless. It's why we always have updates to their operating systems, at least monthly on Tuesdays. Oftentimes it's every Tuesday because they don't produce a flawless system. They couldn't stay in business if they ran on Apple's model because demand is so high for their product. You may ask, Al, where do we get poor system performance from? Why does my iLearn not work right? It could be a bug in the software, which is an error. It could be your hardware. It could be something with your network connection. It could be with the servers at Marist. Or it could be you put in your password wrong, some poor data. Sorry, quality of life. So we have negative social consequences of system. Who has the power of using systems? Now, how do we maintain our work-life balance? At Greystone, they help me a lot with systems because I can connect from anywhere, whereas I don't have to always be in the office. So I have time for my family. I have time for Marist. Oftentimes, that's not the case. I look at my wife's work with Geodis. They were working her 16 hours a day. She had very little time for her family. Finally, she broke down and said, I need a different job. They gave her a different job. Now she has the balance that she needs. Computer crime and abuse has become rampant. We see all kinds of crime, identity theft, ransomware, all things that never happened before the internet came about. We've talked about computer crime. Last two slides, I want to talk about health risks. Repetitive stress injury, carpal tunnel, computer vision syndrome, techno stress. I used to get a little buzz in class because my wife used to be a techno stress person, constantly dealing with challenges of using systems and the amount of hours she worked. She had real problems using technology. Still doesn't like technology, but she's much better. I'm the king of repetitive stress and carpal tunnel. I've had 4 carpal tunnel surgeries and 1 tennis elbow release, all related from my work life. So using computers isn't always a safe thing. And that's it, guys. Nice short chapter. It really teaches us how we think, how we use systems properly, who's responsible for system quality, who's responsible for using systems well. Like I said, answer me that question about where I got the cookie discussion from, and we'll call that a chapter. We'll watch a video tomorrow on Burger King's attempt to explain net neutrality. We'll discuss some more about net neutrality. We'll watch one of the other videos for Chapter 4, and we'll watch the one for Chapter 5. We'll get started with Chapter 5, which is computer hardware, which can be a pretty quick chapter as well. I would anticipate finishing it early in our class on Monday. Remember, we grouped Chapter 3 and 4 homework together, so we really need to watch this video before we do the homework. I'll post a quiz tomorrow on 2 chapters as well. I hope you all have a great Wednesday. If any of you celebrate, good Yom Kippur to you all, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.